Chapter 1. The Unexpected Encounter. Bella walked down the crowded city street, her heels clicking softly against the pavement as she wove through the throng of people. The night air was cool, the city alive with lights, and the distant hum of traffic echoed through the towering buildings. Dressed in her favorite red dress, she moved with a purpose, though her mind was elsewhere, tangled in the uncertainty of her life. The neon signs above flickered, casting a pale glow on her face, but she hardly noticed. Her life had become a routine, a cycle she couldn't break. Across town, Chris stood by the window of his luxurious penthouse suite, gazing out at the glittering skyline. His world was polished, pristine, and orderly, but something felt missing. Success had come early to him, but the loneliness that accompanied it lingered longer than expected. The city below seemed like a distant world, one he watched but never touched. A swirl of emotions stirred within him, feelings he often buried beneath work and expectations. Fate began to stir. Bella's steps slowed as she reached the corner of a busy intersection. A sleek black car, idling nearby, caught her attention. Its window rolled down slightly, revealing Chris behind the wheel. Their eyes met briefly, but in that moment, something shifted. It was as if the world around them paused, the noise of the city fading into a distant echo. Neither of them moved at first, each feeling a pull neither could quite understand. Chris hesitated, his hand hovering over the car door handle. There was something about Bella that drew him in, something beyond her striking appearance. It was in the way she held herself, a quiet strength despite the uncertainty in her eyes. Without fully realizing it, Chris found himself stepping out of the car and approaching her. Bella stood still, her heart beating faster, unsure of what to expect. As Chris neared, Bella felt a wave of apprehension, but also curiosity. He was handsome, confident, yet there was a softness in his expression that put her at ease. Their eyes locked again, and in that silent exchange, a mutual understanding passed between them, one that words could never capture. The moment lingered as they stood there, two strangers in the middle of the city, connected by an invisible thread. Chris reached into his pocket, pulling out a simple business card. He extended it toward her, offering it without a word. Bella hesitated, her gaze shifting from the card to his face, searching for meaning in his gesture. With a steady hand, she accepted it, her fingers brushing lightly against his. In that brief contact, something shifted once more. Bella looked down at the card, the elegant print reflecting the high status of the man before her. Yet, it was not his wealth or status that intrigued her. It was the unspoken offer of something more. Something that might lead her out of the routine she had been trapped in. Chris waited, his gaze never leaving hers, as if silently asking her to make a choice. After a moment, Bella slipped the card into her purse, her lips curling into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. She gave a small nod, signaling her decision. Chris's eyes softened, and without another glance, he turned back toward his car. Bella watched him leave, the weight of their encounter settling over her like a veil of possibility. The city resumed its rhythm around them as Bella stood there for a moment longer, the glow of the streetlights illuminating her path. She took a deep breath, feeling something stir inside her. A sense of adventure, perhaps, or a glimmer of hope. Without looking back, she turned and continued her walk, her steps lighter than before, as if the world had shifted beneath her feet. As Chris drove away, he felt the same shift. Something had changed in that brief exchange with Bella, something he couldn't quite explain. But as the city lights blurred past him, he knew one thing for certain. Their paths had crossed for a reason, and neither of their lives would be the same again. Chapter 2. A Chance Meeting. The following evening, Bella found herself in a part of the city she rarely ventured to, a world of polished buildings, designer storefronts, and luxury that seemed to exist in a different universe from her own. She had been drawn here by something she couldn't quite place, perhaps the mysterious encounter from the previous night. The card Chris had given her remained in her purse, its weight a reminder of the decision she had made without fully understanding its implications. She wandered through the streets, her eyes absorbing the elegant atmosphere. The people here walked with purpose, their outfits tailored and expensive, their lives appearing as flawless as the glass facades of the shops they frequented. Bella felt like an outsider, her simple dress out of place in this world of affluence. And yet, something urged her to keep walking, as if destiny were guiding her towards something unseen. As she approached a grand hotel, a familiar sleek black car came into view, parked at the entrance. Bella's heart quickened. It was Chris's car. She slowed her steps, her gaze fixed on the vehicle as she wondered if their paths were about to cross again. Inside the hotel, Chris sat in a private lounge, nursing a glass of scotch as he stared absently at the polished wood of the bar. His meeting had concluded earlier than expected, and now he found himself with time to kill, but nothing to fill it. He had spent much of the day thinking about the brief encounter with Bella, replaying the moment when their eyes met and something unspoken passed between them. He hadn't expected her to take the card, yet she had, and now he found himself wondering if she would ever call. He hadn't expected to care. Chris rose from his seat, his mind restless. He decided to step outside for some fresh air, hoping the cool breeze of the night would clear his thoughts. As he stepped through the ornate doors of the hotel, his eyes scanned the street, and there she was, Bella, standing just across the way, her figure framed by the warm glow of the streetlights. Their eyes met again. Chris's pulse quickened as he took a step forward, but then stopped himself. There was no need to rush this moment. Instead, he observed her from a distance, taking in the quiet confidence in her stance, the way she seemed both curious and cautious in this unfamiliar world. He wondered what had brought her here, whether it was a coincidence or something more. Bella stood frozen for a moment, her breath catching in her throat as she spotted Chris emerging from the hotel. The sight of him stirred a mix of emotions, curiosity, excitement, and a subtle apprehension. She hadn't expected to see him again so soon, and yet, here he was, just as mysterious and alluring as before. The air between them felt charged with anticipation. Slowly, as if guided by some invisible force, Bella began to walk toward him. Her steps were careful but deliberate, the noise of the city fading into the background as her focus narrowed to the man standing just ahead. Chris watched her approach, his heartbeat steady but his mind racing. He could sense the gravity of the moment, the way the world seemed to hold its breath as they neared one another. When she was just a few steps away, Bella stopped, her eyes locking with his once more. They stood there, in the middle of the bustling city, surrounded by strangers, yet it felt as though they were the only two people in the world. Neither of them moved, neither of them spoke. It was as if they were communicating through the silence, an understanding passing between them that words could never capture. Chris reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small, elegant envelope. He extended it toward her, his hand steady and sure. Bella's gaze flickered to the envelope, curiosity sparking within her. She hesitated for only a second before reaching out to accept it. As their fingers brushed, a spark of connection flared between them, subtle but undeniable. With the envelope now in her possession, Bella glanced at it, then back at Chris. There was a question in her eyes, but she didn't need to voice it. Chris simply nodded, his expression soft but unreadable. He turned then, walking back toward the hotel entrance, his movements smooth and confident, as if he knew the future was already set in motion. Bella watched him disappear into the hotel, the envelope clutched in her hand. She took a deep breath, her heart fluttering with anticipation and uncertainty. She wasn't sure what lay ahead, but something told her that this chance meeting, this second encounter, was the beginning of something far greater than either of them could predict. Slowly, she opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded neatly. Bella unfolded it with care, her eyes scanning the elegant handwriting. There were no instructions, no promises, just an address and a time. Tomorrow night. The simplicity of it both intrigued and unsettled her. As she stood there, Beneath the glow of the city lights, Bella realized she had a choice to make. The world around her seemed to blur as she contemplated the possibilities. She could walk away now, return to her life, and never see Chris again. Or she could follow the path that had been laid before her, step into the unknown, and see where it might lead. With a determined breath, Bella slipped the note back into the envelope, her decision made. Tomorrow, she would find out what fate had in store. Chapter 3. Unlikely Proposal. The next evening arrived more quickly than Bella had expected. She stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the black dress she had chosen for the occasion. Her fingers trembled slightly as she fixed the thin straps over her shoulders. The envelope, still resting on her dresser, held the address that had lingered in her thoughts all day. She hadn't told anyone about her encounter with Chris. There was something deeply personal, almost sacred, about the connection they shared. It felt like stepping into a world that didn't belong to the reality she knew. Bella took a deep breath and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The uncertainty gnawed at her, but so did the sense of curiosity. She grabbed the small black purse resting on the bed, placed the envelope inside, and made her way out of her apartment, the evening's possibilities unfurling in front of her like an uncharted map. The city looked different tonight. The streets seemed quieter, the air heavier with anticipation. Bella followed the directions, weaving through streets that grew increasingly more opulent as she approached her destination. Her heels clicked softly against the polished cobblestone sidewalks, her heart pounding in rhythm with her steps. Eventually, she reached the address. The building stood tall, its grandeur evident in the immaculate exterior and wide marble staircase that led up to an ornate double door. The subtle golden glow from the street lamps cast the mansion-like structure in an almost ethereal light. Bella's breath caught in her throat as she paused at the base of the steps. This wasn't just an ordinary evening. Whatever lay beyond those doors was something far beyond her expectations. She ascended the stairs slowly, each step bringing her closer to an unknown fate. When she reached the top, the doors opened without her needing to knock. A man in a black suit, who appeared to be some sort of concierge, stood at the entrance. He gave her a brief, respectful nod, motioning her inside. Bella glanced around once more before stepping over the threshold. The interior of the building was even more magnificent than the exterior. Marble floors gleamed beneath chandeliers that sparkled like constellations above. The soft, muted colors of the room gave the space an elegant, almost timeless feel. Bella followed the silent butler down a long corridor, her heels echoing softly against the floors as they moved deeper into the mansion. Finally, the butler stopped in front of a set of grand doors, crafted from dark, polished wood. He opened them with a quiet gesture, allowing Bella to step inside. As the doors closed behind her, she found herself in a private dining room, its large windows offering a stunning view of the city below. Candles flickered across the long table, casting a warm glow over the room. And there, seated at the head of the table, was Chris. He rose from his seat as soon as Bella entered, his gaze steady but unreadable. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, his hair neatly styled, and there was a subtle intensity in his presence. Bella stood still for a moment, taking in the scene before her. She felt out of place, a stark contrast to the opulence surrounding her. And yet, something about the way Chris looked at her made her feel as though she belonged here, at least for tonight. Chris gestured to a seat beside him, and Bella slowly made her way across the room. She took the offered chair, her hands resting lightly in her lap, as she tried to calm the racing thoughts swirling in her mind. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, yet neither of them seemed in any rush to fill the silence. The meal began shortly after Bella took her seat. Silver platters were brought out by a team of silent waiters, each course more exquisite than the last. Bella barely touched the food, her appetite diminished by the uncertainty of the evening's purpose. Chris, on the other hand, appeared composed, his movements deliberate as he sipped his wine and occasionally glanced in Bella's direction. When dessert was served, a delicate arrangement of fruits and pastries, Chris set down his glass and reached into his jacket pocket. Bella watched him, her heart skipping a beat as he retrieved a small, elegant black box. He placed it gently on the table in front of her, his eyes never leaving hers. Bella's pulse quickened as she stared at the box, her mind racing with possibilities. Slowly, she reached for it, her fingers trembling slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside was a simple but stunning necklace, a thin gold chain with a small diamond pendant, elegant and understated. Just like the man sitting across from her. Bella glanced up at Chris, her eyes questioning, but there was no need for words. The gesture was clear. It wasn't just a gift, it was a proposal of sorts, a silent offer of something more than what their initial encounter had suggested. Chris was inviting her into his world, a world of luxury and exclusivity, but also one that came with unspoken expectations. Bella closed the box and placed it gently back on the table. She sat still for a moment, her mind swirling with thoughts. This wasn't just an invitation to join him for dinner. It was a choice, one that could alter the course of her life. She felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her, the realization that what she decided here could define her future. Chris's gaze remained calm, patient. He didn't push her for a decision. Instead, he waited, his hands resting loosely on the edge of the table, his eyes quietly watching her every move. Bella exhaled slowly, her thoughts clearing as she took in the gravity of the situation. The pull of the life Chris offered was strong, but so was the hesitation in her heart. She had come from a world of struggle and hardship where nothing was ever given freely. And while this new life seemed enticing, it came with its own set of rules she wasn't sure she wanted to follow. After what felt like an eternity, Bella stood from her chair. She picked up the box and placed it in her purse, her decision made. She didn't need to speak. Her actions spoke for her. Chris's expression softened, and with a slight nod, he stood as well. They walked out of the dining room together, the unspoken agreement hanging in the air between them like a fragile thread. As they exited the mansion, the cool night air greeted them, the city's hum a distant reminder of the world outside. Bella paused at the top of the marble staircase, looking out over the skyline. She could feel Chris's presence beside her, steady and composed, but she didn't turn to face him. Without a word, Bella descended the stairs, her mind still grappling with the implications of what had just transpired. Chris watched her go, his hands resting in his pockets, his eyes following her until she disappeared into the night. As Bella walked away, her heart felt lighter, but her mind was more uncertain than ever. The future, it seemed, was now completely in her hands. Chapter 4. A Life Left Behind. The days following that evening were a whirlwind for Bella. Her decision to accept Chris's offer had set a chain of events into motion, and soon she found herself swept up in a world that felt almost like a dream, an unreal shift from the life she had known. Yet, with each passing day, that dreamlike haze started to settle into something tangible. Her apartment, small and worn but comfortable, became a relic of her old life. She spent less and less time there, its familiarity fading with each visit. Instead, Chris had offered her access to one of his city properties, a luxurious penthouse high above the bustling streets below. The space was modern and meticulously designed, filled with sleek furniture and expansive views of the skyline. Bella had never seen anything like it, let alone lived in such a place. The moment she had walked into the penthouse for the first time, it had taken her breath away. There was a sense of disbelief in her, mingled with curiosity. The woman she saw reflected in the penthouse mirrors was beginning to change, ever so slightly. Her wardrobe, once made up of simple, practical clothing, was slowly being replaced with tailored outfits, elegant dresses, designer shoes, handbags with names she hadn't known existed. Chris provided everything, without a word or expectation. He was simply there, in the background of her new life, like a shadow overseeing her transformation. But it wasn't just the clothes, or the apartment, or the life of luxury that marked the change in Bella. It was the way the world around her began to respond to her presence. No longer was she invisible among the crowds. Eyes followed her when she walked into a room, people spoke to her with respect, and she received attention she never thought she would have. For a woman who had spent much of her life trying to go unnoticed, the sudden spotlight felt strange, even unsettling. Yet, part of her embraced it, curious about this new power that came with wealth and beauty. Chris, too, seemed different in this new arrangement. He never demanded her presence, but whenever they were together, there was a quiet intensity between them. He took her to events, parties, gatherings with other people from his world. Wealthy businessmen and women, socialites, and celebrities filled the spaces they visited. Bella often found herself lost in the grandeur of it all, the swirling energy of people who lived their lives as though the rules of the world didn't apply to them. At one of these events, Bella stood in front of a mirror in a powder room, adjusting a diamond necklace Chris had given her. The necklace glittered in the soft lighting, its weight a constant reminder of the unspoken arrangement she had entered into. She studied her reflection, her face carefully made up, her hair styled to perfection, and for a moment, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back at her was polished, poised, and confident. But beneath the surface, Bella could still feel the remnants of the person she had once been. The version of herself who had struggled for everything, who had lived in a tiny apartment, and who had been invisible to the world around her. That version of Bella hadn't disappeared, but she was becoming harder to see, even to herself. Returning to the party, Bella found Chris standing by the bar, engaged in conversation with a group of men in sharp suits. His calm demeanor never wavered, and when his eyes found hers across the room, he offered a small nod of acknowledgement. There was no warmth in his gaze, only a distant sense of connection that seemed to have solidified between them without words. Bella joined him, standing by his side as the conversation continued around her, a quiet observer in this world of wealth and privilege. As the night wore on, Bella moved through the crowd, mingling and listening, but always aware of Chris's presence nearby. Their lives had become intertwined, not in a romantic sense, but in something more complex. He was the architect of her new life, the one who had opened the door to this world, but their relationship remained undefined. There were no promises, no expectations spoken aloud, yet the bond between them felt unbreakable, forged in the silence of understanding. Time passed quickly, and soon Bella found herself fully immersed in this new lifestyle. Days blurred into nights, and nights into days, as she attended charity galas, dinners, and exclusive social events. The opulence that had once felt foreign now became familiar, even routine. Bella knew the faces of the elite, learned their names and their habits, and became part of the social fabric of Chris's world. Yet, through it all, she never lost the awareness that this life had come with a price, though what that price was remained unclear. One evening, after returning to the penthouse from yet another event, Bella stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city below. The view was breathtaking, the endless lights of the city stretching out like stars beneath her feet. But despite the beauty of it all, a sense of emptiness crept into her chest, filling the spaces left by the life she had left behind. Bella turned away from the window and wandered through the penthouse, her bare feet silent on the cool marble floors. She passed by the lavish living room, the artfully arranged furniture, the expensive decor. All of it felt more like a museum than a home. There were no personal touches here, nothing that belonged to her, nothing that reminded her of who she had been before Chris had come into her life. She paused in the bedroom, her eyes drifting to the closet, where rows of designer dresses hung in perfect order. Her fingers brushed the fabrics, soft and luxurious, yet unfamiliar. Bella couldn't help but wonder what it all meant. Was this life truly hers now, or was she merely borrowing it for a time? The question gnawed at her, unanswered and unsettling. Chris's absence was noticeable tonight. He often left her alone, attending business meetings or handling other affairs that he never discussed. Bella didn't mind the solitude, but tonight it felt heavier than usual, as though the quiet of the penthouse echoed with thoughts she couldn't escape. She sat down on the edge of the bed, the weight of everything catching up to her. As Bella lay back, staring at the ceiling, she thought about her old life, the simplicity of it, the struggles that had defined her, and the version of herself that had survived on her own terms. That life seemed so distant now, almost like a memory from another world. Yet, it had been real, and it had been hers. In this new world, everything had been given to her, but nothing felt truly her own. The night stretched on, and Bella drifted into a restless sleep, her dreams filled with images of who she had been and who she was becoming. The boundaries between the two blurred, leaving her in a state of uncertainty. Somewhere in the penthouse, the city lights continued to shine, casting their glow into the vast, silent space that Bella now inhabited. Chapter 5. A Shift in the Winds. The next morning, sunlight poured through the expansive windows of the penthouse, bathing the room in a golden light. Bella stirred beneath the soft, silken sheets, her mind foggy with remnants of restless dreams. The familiar weight of uncertainty still clung to her as she rose from the bed, her body moving through the morning routine almost mechanically. The luxury around her had become something she moved through rather than lived in, like an actor playing a part in a scene she didn't fully understand. The sound of the city below was a constant hum, muted by the height of the penthouse but still present. It was a reminder of the life bustling beneath her, the people moving through their daily struggles, a life she was once a part of but now observed from above. Bella gazed out the window, her eyes tracing the skyline as her thoughts wandered, searching for clarity that never seemed to come. That day, Bella found herself alone again, with Chris having left early for one of his many business meetings. His absence had become a regular part of her new reality. His presence felt more through the luxury he provided than through any actual interaction. Bella didn't mind the quiet, but today it felt especially isolating. The penthouse, for all its beauty, had become a gilded cage, and Bella's growing awareness of it weighed heavily on her heart. She dressed herself in one of the tailored dresses Chris had bought for her, its fine material smooth against her skin. She was expected to attend an event later that evening, another high-profile charity gala where she would once again play the role of Chris's companion. The thought of it filled her with a familiar sense of detachment, the motions of her new life becoming routine, but without purpose. Deciding she needed to clear her head, Bella slipped on a pair of sunglasses and made her way down the elevator, out of the towering building that had become her home. The air outside felt crisp and cool, a refreshing contrast to the opulence of the penthouse. She walked through the bustling streets, blending into the crowd, feeling the pulse of the city beneath her feet. As she walked, Bella passed through neighborhoods she hadn't visited since she had left her old life behind. The small cafes, the noisy street vendors, the faded storefronts. Everything felt so different from the life she was now living, yet strangely comforting. She had once found herself in these very streets, struggling to make ends meet, yet the authenticity of it had given her a sense of purpose. There was nothing glamorous about that life, but it had been hers, earned through effort and grit. Bella paused in front of a small bakery, its windows fogged from the warmth inside. The smell of fresh bread wafted through the door as someone stepped out, and for a moment, Bella was transported back to her old routine. She had often come here for a simple coffee and pastry when she could afford it, sitting in the back corner and watching the world go by. There had been a sense of contentment in those moments, despite the challenges she faced. Without much thought, Bella entered the bakery, the bell above the door chiming softly. The familiar warmth of the place embraced her, and she ordered a coffee, something she hadn't done in what felt like ages. As she sat at a small table by the window, she watched the people outside rushing by, their lives filled with the same struggles and hopes she had once known. There was a part of her that missed it, the simplicity, the rawness of living day by day, without the weight of expectation or the hollow beauty of wealth. She sipped her coffee slowly, savoring the moment of solitude in a space that felt real. The bakery was nothing like the grand dining rooms she had been frequenting, but it had a charm that those spaces lacked. Here, life was imperfect, messy, and unpredictable, but it was life. Bella sat there for a long time, lost in her thoughts, as the world continued to move around her. When she finally left the bakery, the sun was beginning to set, casting a soft glow over the streets. Bella walked slowly, taking in the city as it transitioned from day to night. She felt a sense of nostalgia, but also a growing realization. This life, the one she had stepped away from, still held meaning for her. There was something about the rawness of it, the honesty in its struggles, that she couldn't find in the pristine world Chris had shown her. As she approached the penthouse building once again, Bella felt a shift inside her. The grandeur of the towering structure no longer filled her with awe. Instead, it felt like an imposition, a reminder of a life she wasn't sure she wanted. She entered the building and rode the elevator up in silence, her thoughts churning with the contrast between her two worlds. Back inside the penthouse, the space felt even more alien. The emptiness was palpable, the silence oppressive. Bella walked through the rooms, her footsteps echoing against the polished floors. She opened the closet and stared at the rows of expensive dresses and shoes, her reflection in the mirror almost unrecognizable. The woman standing there looked perfect, but the woman inside was conflicted. That evening, Bella dressed for the gala. She chose a sleek black gown, simple yet elegant, and paired it with diamond earrings Chris had given her. Her makeup was flawless, her hair perfectly styled, but as she looked at herself in the mirror, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, something deeper than the surface image she presented to the world. Chris arrived to pick her up, his presence as composed and controlled as always. He offered his arm as they left the penthouse, and Bella took it, though her heart wasn't in it. They arrived at the event, another grand ballroom filled with wealthy socialites and powerful figures. Bella moved through the crowd, her movements practiced, her smile polite, but inside, her mind was elsewhere. As the night wore on, Bella found herself standing near the edge of the ballroom, watching as Chris spoke with several high-profile guests. He was in his element here, perfectly poised, commanding respect with his mere presence. But as Bella watched him, she realized that she didn't belong in this world. Not truly. She had played the part, but it wasn't who she was. Something inside her clicked, and Bella knew, in that moment, that she needed to take back control of her life. This world, with all its luxury and beauty, wasn't enough for her. She needed more. Something real, something authentic, something that belonged to her and not to the man who had brought her into this life. Without making a scene, Bella quietly slipped out of the ballroom, the weight of her decision heavy on her shoulders. She found a taxi and gave the driver her old address, the one she hadn't visited in weeks. As the car sped through the city, Bella looked out at the lights passing by, feeling a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. When she arrived at her old apartment building, Bella stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, looking up at the familiar facade. The building wasn't much, but it had been hers. It had been real. And now, as she stood there, she realized that this was the place where she would begin to rediscover herself. Bella took a deep breath and walked inside, her heart beating with a renewed sense of purpose. She was leaving behind the life Chris had offered, but she was gaining something far more valuable: her own freedom, her own identity, and the chance to find what truly mattered to her. Chapter 6: The Return to Reality. The creak of the old apartment door greeted Bella as she stepped inside. The familiar scent of her space, faintly mingled with old books and forgotten corners, filled the air around her. It was a stark contrast to the luxury and pristine elegance of Chris's penthouse. The worn hardwood floor beneath her feet groaned softly as she walked through the small but familiar living room, her fingers brushing against the old couch she had once spent countless evenings curled up on. Dust had gathered in the corners, and the air felt heavy with neglect, but there was something comforting about it. This was hers, her space, her life, and her reality. No towering windows, no marble floors, no lavish closets filled with designer clothes. Just the simple remnants of a life she had lived before everything changed. Bella dropped her purse onto the couch, the soft thud echoing through the room. For a moment, she stood still, just listening to the silence, allowing it to wash over her. The decision to return had been sudden, but the longer she spent here, the more right it felt. The weight of the penthouse, the parties, the expectations, it had been lifted, and in its place was a quiet sense of relief. Bella walked through the apartment, reacquainting herself with the space. Her fingers traced the faded wallpaper in the hallway, the small kitchen table where she had once eaten hurried breakfasts before rushing out the door. Every inch of this place held memories, some difficult, but all of them real. She opened the fridge, expecting it to be empty, and found it was exactly that. A few condiments sat lonely on the shelves, relics of the life she had left behind. Bella smiled faintly to herself, amused by the simplicity of it all. She closed the door and turned back to the small kitchen, her eyes drifting over the chipped countertops and worn cabinets. It was far from glamorous, but it had always been enough. Bella decided to clean, a way to reconnect with the space and make it feel like home again. She tied her hair up, grabbed an old rag, and set to work, wiping down the surfaces, sweeping the floors, dusting the forgotten corners. The physical activity felt good, grounding her in the present moment. There was something therapeutic about the act of cleaning, of scrubbing away the layers of dust and dirt that had accumulated in her absence. Each wipe of the cloth felt like a step toward reclaiming her identity. Hours passed, and the apartment slowly began to feel like her own again. Bella stood in the doorway of her bedroom, looking in at the small, unmade bed with its faded quilt. She could almost see the ghost of her old self, lying there after a long day of work, exhausted but content. The room was modest, but it had been her sanctuary, a place where she could retreat from the world and just be herself. As the sun began to set outside, casting a warm, orange glow through the windows, Bella sat down on the couch, her body aching slightly from the hours of cleaning. She hadn't realized how much she had missed this quiet, unpretentious life. The days spent in luxury had dulled her connection to the simplicity of living on her own terms. But now, sitting in her old apartment, she felt more alive than she had in weeks. The evening deepened, and the city outside her window began to quiet down. The soft hum of distant traffic and the occasional murmur of voices from the street below were the only sounds that accompanied her solitude. Bella didn't mind the quiet. In fact, she embraced it. There was no need to fill the space with anything other than her own presence. Her thoughts, however, weren't so quiet. They drifted back to Chris, to the life he had offered her, and to the person she had become in that world. It had been a whirlwind of glamour and wealth, but it hadn't been real. Not for her, at least. She had played a role, worn the dresses, attended the parties, but beneath it all, she had felt disconnected. The version of herself that Chris had introduced to the world was polished and poised, but she wasn't sure if that version was truly her. Bella stood and walked over to the window, gazing out at the familiar street below. The world outside hadn't changed, but she had. There was no denying that her time with Chris had impacted her, even if she wasn't sure what that impact would ultimately mean. She had tasted a life of luxury, of privilege, and it had shown her a side of the world she had never imagined. But it had also shown her that no amount of wealth could replace the sense of self she had lost along the way. As she stood there, lost in thought, Bella felt a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't regret her time with Chris. It had been an experience, a chapter in her life that had taught her more than she realized. But now, standing here in her own space, she knew that chapter was coming to a close. The life Chris had offered her wasn't the life she wanted, not in the long run. She needed something more, something real, something that belonged to her alone. That night, Bella slept in her old bed, the familiar creak of the mattress beneath her a welcome sound. She drifted off into a deep, restful sleep, her body and mind finally at ease. It was the first time in weeks that she had felt truly at home. The following morning, the sun filtered through the curtains, waking Bella slowly. She stretched beneath the quilt, her body relaxed and her mind clear. There was no rush, no event to prepare for, no expectation hanging over her. It was just her, in her apartment, with the whole day ahead of her. Bella got up and made herself a simple breakfast, toast and coffee, just like she used to. As she sat at the small kitchen table, sipping her coffee and looking out at the quiet street below, she felt a sense of contentment settle into her bones. This was the life she wanted. Not the glamorous parties, not the designer clothes, not the penthouse with its towering views. Just this, her own space, her own routine, her own freedom. The day stretched out before her, filled with possibilities. Bella knew there were still decisions to be made, still things she needed to figure out about her future. But for now, she was content to just be, to live in the moment, without the pressure of anyone else's expectations. As the morning light brightened the room, Bella stood at the window again, her heart light and her mind clear. She had chosen this life, her life, and that was enough. For the first time in a long while, Bella felt truly free. Chapter 7. The Distance Grows. The days that followed felt both liberating and strange for Bella. She had fallen back into the rhythm of her old life. Yet there was an undeniable sense of distance from it all. Returning to her apartment had brought with it a kind of peace, but it also came with the quiet weight of reflection, a slow and steady realization that she was no longer the person she had been when she'd first lived there. Every morning, Bella woke up to the familiar sounds of the city. Cars passing below, distant voices rising and falling, and the occasional dog barking. Her apartment, though simple, had become her sanctuary again. She spent her mornings drinking coffee by the window, watching the world outside move at its own pace. Sometimes, she ventured out into the city, wandering aimlessly through the streets, reconnecting with places she had once known so well. But now, every step felt different, as if she was seeing everything through new eyes. Bella often found herself lingering in places from her past. The park where she had once spent long afternoons reading or just lying on the grass now seemed quieter, its beauty understated but real. She sat on benches, watching people go about their day, feeling a sense of detachment from the lives unfolding around her. In a way, she had become a spectator to the city, observing from a distance but no longer truly belonging to it. One afternoon, Bella visited a small art gallery she used to frequent. It was tucked away on a quiet street, almost hidden from view, but it had always been a place of solace for her. The smell of paint and old wood greeted her as she stepped inside, the soft hum of classical music playing in the background. She wandered through the gallery, her eyes tracing the lines of the paintings on the walls, each piece telling its own story, each brushstroke filled with intention. As she moved from one artwork to another, Bella felt a quiet longing stir within her. Art had always been something she loved, something that made her feel connected to the world in a way that words couldn't. But now, looking at the paintings, she realized that she had drifted so far from that part of herself. In the whirlwind of her time with Chris, in the luxury and allure of his world, she had forgotten the things that used to bring her joy, the things that made her feel alive. She paused in front of one painting in particular, a simple piece depicting a solitary figure standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The sky above was dark, clouds swirling ominously, but the figure stood firm, facing the waves with quiet resolve. Something about the image struck Bella deeply. It mirrored the way she had been feeling, adrift, caught between two worlds, unsure of which direction to go. Yet, like the figure in the painting, she remained standing, grounded in her solitude, waiting for the storm to pass. Leaving the gallery, Bella felt a renewed sense of purpose, though it was still undefined. She knew that she needed to reconnect with herself, to rediscover the parts of her that had been lost in the shuffle of luxury and wealth. The days stretched out before her like a blank canvas, and for the first time in a long while, Bella felt the urge to create something for herself. Back in her apartment, Bella began to paint again. It had been years since she had picked up a brush, but as soon as she dipped it into the paint and pressed it to the canvas, a familiar calm washed over her. She worked slowly at first, letting the strokes come naturally without overthinking. It wasn't about creating something perfect. It was about reconnecting with the act of creation, about expressing something from deep within that words couldn't capture. The painting took shape over the course of several days. Bella spent hours sitting at her small kitchen table, the canvas propped up in front of her, the light from the window shifting throughout the day. The image she created was abstract, filled with swirling colors and bold lines, but it felt right. It felt like a reflection of the chaos and confusion she had been carrying, and yet there was beauty in it, a sense of hope hidden within the storm of emotions. As Bella painted, she thought of Chris often. His absence was palpable, though she had made the choice to distance herself from him. She wondered if he missed her, if he had noticed her absence at all. But she didn't dwell on the thought for long. She had made her decision, and it had been the right one. Chris's world had been alluring, but it wasn't her world. She needed to find her own way, to build something that was hers alone. Weeks passed, and Bella continued to live quietly, slipping further into her own routine. She found herself at peace more often than not, though there were still moments of doubt, moments when she wondered if she had made the right choice. The distance between her and Chris grew wider with each passing day, yet there was a part of her that still held on to the memory of their time together. It wasn't love, not in the traditional sense, but there had been something between them, something she couldn't quite name. One evening, as the sun set outside her window, Bella sat on the floor of her living room, surrounded by canvases and paint. She stared at the painting in front of her, its colors vibrant in the fading light, and felt a strange sense of completion. She had poured herself into the work, and now, as she looked at it, she realized that she had found a part of herself again. The act of creating had brought her back to life in a way that nothing else could. Yet, despite the peace she had found, Bella couldn't ignore the lingering thoughts of Chris. He had been a significant part of her journey, and though she had walked away from his world, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was unfinished business between them. The question of what might have been still lingered in the back of her mind, though she tried to push it aside. That night, Bella stood by the window, looking out at the city as it glittered beneath her. She had found her way back to herself, but the journey wasn't over. There was still more to discover, more to create, more to live. The future stretched out before her, uncertain but full of possibility. And though she was content in the moment, Bella couldn't help but wonder what would come next. Would she ever see Chris again? Would their paths cross once more? Or had they drifted too far apart to ever return to each other? As the city lights flickered in the distance, Bella felt a quiet resolve settle within her. Whatever the future held, she would face it on her own terms. She had found herself again, and that was all that mattered. Chapter 8. Rekindled Temptations. Bella had settled into a life of quiet independence, her days blending into each other as she focused on her painting, her walks through the city, and the rediscovery of simple pleasures. The world outside her apartment continued its usual rhythm, but within the confines of her small space, Bella felt as if she had created a bubble of calm. The rush of the city felt distant, and her life had taken on a slower, more deliberate pace. But just as she began to feel comfortable in her routine, the past she had walked away from started to tug at her. It started with small things. One morning, as Bella sat in a local cafe, sipping her coffee and sketching on a napkin, her eyes caught a glimpse of a familiar sight. A sleek black car parked outside, the same model Chris had once driven. Her heart skipped a beat as she watched it, her mind pulling her back to the moments spent in the passenger seat beside him, gliding through the city streets in effortless luxury. But the driver of this car was a stranger, and the feeling of nostalgia that had washed over her quickly faded into the background. Still, the memories lingered longer than they should have. She hadn't thought of Chris much since leaving his world, but now, reminders of him seemed to be everywhere. As Bella walked through the city, she passed stores she had visited with him, restaurants where they had shared quiet meals, and even buildings that reminded her of his penthouse, with its towering glass walls and sweeping views. The life she had left behind seemed to be following her, shadowing her steps no matter how far she tried to walk from it. One evening, Bella returned home to find an envelope slipped under her apartment door. It was a simple white envelope, no name, no return address, just her address written neatly in black ink. Her heart quickened as she bent to pick it up, and for a moment, she hesitated before tearing it open. Inside was a simple card, its message written in the same elegant handwriting. There were no declarations, no questions, just two words, "I miss you." Bella's breath caught as she stared at the card. There was no signature, but she didn't need one to know who had sent it. The familiar handwriting, the subtlety of the message, it was unmistakably from Chris. A rush of emotions flooded her, pulling her in two directions at once. Part of her had expected this, had known that their story wasn't quite over, but another part of her had hoped for a clean break, a quiet end to their chapter. Now, the lines were blurring again, and she wasn't sure how to feel. For days, the card sat on her kitchen table, its presence both a comfort and a burden. Bella found herself staring at it in the quiet moments, her mind drifting back to Chris and the life she had once lived with him. The weight of his world had been too much for her, but there had been moments of beauty too, moments where she had felt something real. She couldn't deny the pull she still felt toward him, even after everything. But she also couldn't deny the freedom she had found since walking away. The simplicity of her life now, the clarity of her thoughts, the peace she had rediscovered in her art. These were things she couldn't easily give up. And yet, the card remained. a silent reminder of what had been left unfinished. A week after receiving the card, Bella found herself standing in front of the gallery she had visited months ago. She had come to love this place, with its quiet halls and intimate exhibits. It had become a sanctuary for her, a place where she could lose herself in the beauty of other people's creations. But today, as she stood in front of the entrance, she couldn't bring herself to step inside. Her thoughts were elsewhere, on Chris, on the card, on the unspoken question it posed. What did he want from her? What did she want from him? The answers weren't clear, and the more Bella thought about it, the more conflicted she became. That evening, Bella took the card from the kitchen table and placed it in a drawer. Out of sight, but never truly out of mind. She tried to focus on her painting, tried to pour her emotions into her work the way she always did. But her brushstrokes felt heavier, less certain. The image on the canvas blurred, the colors not quite coming together the way they usually did. Her mind was elsewhere, tangled in the past and the future, in the choices she had made and the ones that still lay ahead. Days turned into weeks, and Bella did her best to move forward, to push Chris and his world out of her mind. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling that their story wasn't over. She had left his world, but it hadn't left her. The quiet rhythm of her days had been disrupted, and no amount of painting, walking, or quiet reflection could put it back in place. One afternoon, as Bella walked through the park near her apartment, she found herself standing by the lake where she had spent so many hours lost in thought. The water was calm, the surface smooth and unbroken, but beneath it, she could feel the undercurrents, the quiet turmoil that mirrored her own. She sat down on a bench, her gaze drifting over the water, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to fully think about Chris. She thought about the way he had looked at her, the way he had always seemed to see something in her that she wasn't sure was really there. She thought about the life he had offered her, the luxury and ease that had come with it, but also the isolation and the weight of it all. And she thought about the card, the simple message that had said so much with so little. Bella sat by the lake until the sun began to set, casting a warm, golden glow over the water. The city around her quieted as the day came to an end, and for the first time in a long while, Bella felt something shift within her. The distance she had created between herself and Chris was no longer enough to keep her from wondering what could have been. When she returned to her apartment that evening, Bella pulled the card from the drawer and held it in her hands. She stood by the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance, and allowed herself to feel the weight of the decision before her. She could ignore the card, keep moving forward with her quiet, simple life. Or she could reach out, step back into Chris's world, and see where it led. The choice was hers, but it wasn't an easy one. As the night deepened and the city outside her window grew quieter, Bella placed the card back in the drawer. She wasn't ready to make a decision yet, but she knew that the time would come when she would have to choose. For now, though, she would wait, just a little longer. Chapter 9. A Glimpse of the Past. The days following Bella's contemplation by the lake were filled with a strange mix of anticipation and dread. She carried on with her routine, trying to focus on her painting and her walks through the city, but a subtle restlessness had taken root within her. The card from Chris lingered in the back of her mind, a constant reminder of the choice she had yet to make. The simplicity of her life seemed increasingly inadequate compared to the complex, alluring world she had once known. One crisp autumn morning, Bella decided to visit a new cafe she had heard about. It was located in a different part of the city, an area she was less familiar with. The idea of exploring a new place, surrounded by unfamiliar faces and a different atmosphere, felt like a welcome distraction from her internal struggle. The cafe was charming and quaint, with vintage furniture and large windows that let in the morning light. The scent of fresh pastries and brewing coffee filled the air, and Bella took a seat at a small table near the window. As she sipped her coffee and gazed out at the street, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was a new chapter waiting to be written. While she was absorbed in her thoughts, the cafe's door opened, and a familiar figure walked in. It was Chris. He was dressed in a casual but elegant outfit, his presence commanding immediate attention. Bella's heart skipped a beat as she caught sight of him. She hadn't expected to see him here. In this place she had chosen for its newness and distance from her previous life. Chris seemed to be alone, and he ordered a coffee before settling at a table across the room. Bella tried to focus on her surroundings, attempting to ignore the tumultuous feelings that Chris's unexpected appearance stirred within her. But despite her best efforts, she found her eyes wandering toward him, her curiosity and old emotions getting the better of her. As Chris sipped his coffee and looked out the window, he seemed lost in thought, just as Bella had been. He appeared different from the last time she had seen him, more relaxed, perhaps, and less burdened by the weight of his world. The way he carried himself had a sense of calm, a subtle shift that intrigued Bella. She watched as he pulled out a small notebook and began writing. His movements were deliberate and focused, and he seemed entirely absorbed in whatever he was working on. Bella's heart ached at the sight of him, remembering the moments they had shared, the conversations and laughter that had once filled her days. The connection they had felt so real then, and now, seeing him again, it felt as if the past had come rushing back to life. Despite her curiosity, Bella knew she couldn't approach him. She had made the choice to step away from his world, and crossing paths with him now felt like a violation of that choice. She sipped her coffee slowly, trying to steady her thoughts and emotions, while keeping Chris in her peripheral vision. The hours passed, and Chris eventually packed up his notebook, paid for his coffee, and left the cafe. Bella watched him go, her heart heavy with a mixture of longing and resolve. She remained in the cafe for a while longer, hoping to regain her composure and to process the unexpected encounter. The sight of Chris had stirred up memories she had been trying to keep at bay. The way he had looked at her, the way he had made her feel, those feelings were still very much alive, despite the time that had passed. As she sat there, Bella wondered if seeing him again was a sign, or merely a coincidence. Did the universe have something to say about her decision, or was it simply a reminder of the path she had chosen to leave behind? When Bella finally left the cafe, the city outside seemed different. The familiar streets and buildings took on a new significance, as if they were part of a larger story that she was still a part of. She walked aimlessly, her mind still buzzing from the encounter with Chris. As the sun began to set, Bella found herself at the park again, the same park where she had once spent so much time. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, and the air was crisp with the promise of evening. She wandered through the park, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions, memories, and questions about her future. She sat on a bench by the lake, much like she had done before, but this time, the scene was different. The park was alive with people enjoying the late afternoon, children playing, couples strolling hand in hand. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of warmth and community, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude she had grown accustomed to. Bella watched as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the water. The lake, once a mirror of her internal struggle, now seemed to reflect a new sense of clarity. She realized that her feelings for Chris were still strong, but they were intertwined with a deeper understanding of who she was and what she needed. The encounter at the cafe had brought the past into sharp focus, but it had also highlighted the growth she had experienced since leaving Chris's world. She had found a new rhythm in her life, a new sense of purpose in her art and her independence. The feelings she had for Chris were real, but they were also part of a larger journey, a journey that she was still navigating. As Bella made her way back to her apartment, she felt a renewed sense of determination. The past had resurfaced, but it had also given her a clearer view of her present and future. She knew that she had to make a decision, but she also knew that it had to be one that aligned with who she had become. Back at home, Bella took a deep breath and looked around her apartment. It was a space that she had made her own, a sanctuary that represented her journey and growth. She took out her paints and began to work on a new canvas, her brushstrokes steady and purposeful. In the quiet of her apartment, surrounded by the soft glow of the lamp and the gentle hum of the city outside, Bella began to paint. The image that took shape on the canvas was abstract but filled with emotion. It was a reflection of her inner world, a blend of past and present, of longing and resolve. As she worked, Bella felt a sense of peace settle over her. She was on the path to discovering what came next, and though the journey was uncertain, she was ready to face it with an open heart. The past had given her a glimpse of what could have been, but it had also reaffirmed her commitment to moving forward, to finding her own way in the world. With each brushstroke, Bella felt more connected to herself, more confident in her choices. The encounter with Chris had been a reminder of the complex emotions she carried, but it had also strengthened her resolve to embrace her own path. The future was unknown, but Bella was ready to face it, one step at a time. Chapter 10: Echoes of Choice. The city had started to embrace autumn in earnest. The leaves on the trees had turned shades of gold and crimson, carpeting the streets in a vivid display of nature's transition. Bella continued with her routine, but a subtle tension lingered beneath her calm exterior. Her recent encounter with Chris had left her introspective, and she found herself at a crossroads, grappling with emotions and decisions that had become increasingly complex. One chilly afternoon, Bella decided to visit an art exhibit at a local gallery, hoping that immersing herself in art would provide the clarity she needed. The gallery was housed in a historic building with high ceilings and large, open spaces. The artworks displayed were diverse, ranging from contemporary pieces to classic works, each telling a unique story through color and form. As Bella wandered through the gallery, she became absorbed in the art around her. The colors, textures, and compositions spoke to her in ways that words could not. She lingered in front of a large abstract painting, its bold strokes and swirling patterns capturing her attention. It was a chaotic yet beautiful representation of emotion, and she found herself drawn to it, seeing parallels between the tumultuous feelings within her and the painting's dynamic forms. Time seemed to slip away as Bella explored the gallery. The art provided a temporary escape from her thoughts, a way to immerse herself in something beyond her own internal struggles. The quiet ambience of the gallery allowed her to reflect, her mind wandering as she absorbed the different pieces. Each artwork evoked memories, thoughts, and emotions that she had been trying to process. After spending several hours at the gallery, Bella left with a renewed sense of purpose. The experience had been both grounding and invigorating, giving her a clearer perspective on her own life and choices. She walked through the city, the crisp air and vibrant colors of autumn creating a backdrop for her thoughts. As she walked, Bella passed by familiar landmarks. The cafe where she had seen Chris, the park by the lake, and the street where she had once lived. Each place held memories, both joyful and painful, and as she moved past them, she felt a deep sense of nostalgia. The city had been a part of her journey, a constant presence through her experiences with Chris and her decision to leave that world behind. Bella's reflections were interrupted by a sudden change in the weather. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and a light drizzle began to fall. She quickened her pace, seeking shelter in a nearby bookstore. The warmth and coziness of the store provided a welcome respite from the cold, and Bella found herself browsing through the shelves, her fingers grazing the spines of various books. The bookstore was a haven of calm, its quiet atmosphere contrasting sharply with the bustling city outside. Bella wandered through the aisles, her eyes scanning the titles and covers. She eventually found herself in the travel section, where she began to leaf through books about different destinations. The thought of exploring new places, of embarking on new adventures, appealed to her. It was a reminder of the possibilities that lay ahead, the chance to create a new chapter in her life. As Bella made her way to the checkout counter, she picked up a book on art and travel, feeling that it might provide inspiration for her own creative pursuits. The cashier greeted her with a warm smile, and Bella exchanged a polite nod before leaving the bookstore. The rain had stopped by the time Bella emerged, and the city streets were glistening with a fresh, clean sheen. The air was crisp, and the sky had cleared, revealing the fading light of the late afternoon. Bella walked home, the book tucked under her arm, feeling a sense of resolve. Back at her apartment, Bella placed the book on her coffee table and sat down to reflect on her day. The visit to the gallery and the bookstore had been more than just distractions. They had been moments of clarity, helping her to see her own journey in a new light. The art she had seen, the books she had browsed, and the city she had wandered through all contributed to her understanding of where she was and where she wanted to go. As evening fell, Bella worked on her painting, her brushstrokes more purposeful and fluid than they had been in recent days. The canvas came alive with colors and forms, reflecting the emotions and thoughts that had been swirling in her mind. The painting was an abstract representation of her internal landscape, a blend of chaos and calm, of past and present. The hours passed as Bella painted, the quiet of her apartment and the soft glow of the lamp creating an intimate setting for her creative process. She felt a renewed sense of determination as she worked, her thoughts focused on the future and the choices she needed to make. By the time Bella finished her painting, the room was filled with the gentle light of the evening. The artwork on the canvas was a testament to her journey, a visual representation of her emotions and experiences. It was both a reflection of her past and a vision of her future, a reminder of the growth and change she had undergone. Bella stood back from the canvas and took a deep breath, feeling a sense of satisfaction and calm. The painting was a symbol of her readiness to move forward, to embrace the uncertainties of the future with an open heart. She knew that the decision about Chris was still looming, but she also knew that she had made progress in understanding herself and her desires. As she prepared for bed, Bella placed the card from Chris back in the drawer, alongside other mementos of her past. It was a reminder of the journey she had taken, but it no longer held the same power over her. She had faced her feelings, confronted her memories, and emerged with a clearer sense of her own path. The city outside her window was quiet, the lights twinkling in the distance. Bella felt a sense of peace as she lay down to sleep, knowing that she was ready to face whatever came next. The echoes of her past had faded, and she was prepared to embrace the future with hope and determination. Chapter 11. Paths Converge. The days continued their steady march into winter, bringing with them a chill that blanketed the city in a crisp, clean silence. Bella's life had found a rhythm in the midst of this seasonal transition. The routine of painting, walking through the park, and exploring new corners of the city provided her with a sense of stability. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet restlessness persisted, a reminder of the unresolved feelings and decisions that lay ahead. One day, as Bella prepared for a visit to a new art studio, she received an unexpected letter. The envelope was elegant, with a familiar handwriting that sent a ripple of surprise through her. She recognized it immediately. It was from Chris. Her heart raced as she opened the envelope, but instead of finding a letter, she discovered a beautifully crafted invitation to an art gallery opening. The gallery was renowned for its eclectic collection and had been a place Bella had always wanted to visit. The invitation was for a private viewing, and it had been sent specifically to her. Chris's gesture was both thoughtful and perplexing, stirring up a mixture of anticipation and anxiety within her. Determined to understand the meaning behind the invitation, Bella decided to attend the gallery opening. As the day approached, she prepared meticulously, choosing an elegant outfit that reflected her refined taste. The gallery's opening promised an evening of sophistication, and Bella wanted to present herself with grace and poise. On the evening of the event, Bella arrived at the gallery just as the sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the city. The gallery was located in a historic building, its architecture a blend of classical and contemporary design. The entrance was adorned with twinkling lights and floral arrangements, creating a festive and welcoming atmosphere. Inside, the gallery was alive with people, artists, collectors, critics, and patrons, all mingling and admiring the art on display. The space was beautifully illuminated, with the artworks positioned strategically to capture the best light. The gallery's walls were lined with a diverse range of pieces, from striking modern sculptures to delicate watercolor paintings. Bella made her way through the crowd, her eyes scanning the artworks with interest. Each piece told its own story, and she found herself engrossed in the visual narratives unfolding before her. The art was thought-provoking and evocative, sparking reflections on her own journey and the choices she faced. As Bella continued to explore the gallery, she noticed Chris standing near one of the exhibits. He was engaged in conversation with a group of guests, his demeanor calm and composed. He appeared to be at ease, mingling with the crowd and discussing the art with a knowledgeable and engaging manner. Bella's heart skipped a beat at the sight of him. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to approach the situation. The invitation had been an unexpected gesture, and now that she was face to face with Chris, she felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Instead of approaching him directly, Bella decided to continue exploring the gallery. She wandered through the different rooms, allowing herself to become absorbed in the art and the ambience of the evening. The gallery provided a backdrop of elegance and creativity, and Bella felt a sense of calm wash over her as she immersed herself in the experience. As the evening progressed, Bella found herself drawn back to Chris's vicinity. He was now alone, standing near a large painting that depicted a serene landscape. Bella's curiosity and desire to understand his intentions guided her steps. She approached the artwork, her gaze shifting between the painting and Chris. Chris, sensing her presence, glanced in her direction. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, Bella felt a jolt of recognition. The familiarity of his gaze, the warmth of his smile. It was as if no time had passed at all. The connection between them was palpable, a reminder of the bond they once shared. Without words, Chris gestured towards the painting, inviting Bella to join him. Bella accepted the silent invitation and stood beside him, both of them focused on the artwork. The painting depicted a tranquil scene of rolling hills and a peaceful river, its colors soft and soothing. The image evoked a sense of calm and serenity, mirroring the feelings Bella had experienced in her quieter moments of reflection. As they stood together, the ambience of the gallery provided a subtle yet powerful backdrop. The art, the people, and the atmosphere all converged to create a sense of shared experience. Bella and Chris were once again united in their appreciation for art, their silent understanding bridging the gap between them. The evening continued with a sense of grace and harmony. Bella and Chris remained in close proximity, their shared presence a testament to the enduring connection between them. The gallery provided a space for reflection and connection, allowing them to navigate their emotions in a serene and elegant setting. As the event drew to a close, Bella and Chris found themselves standing near the entrance, where the guests were beginning to gather their coats and prepare to leave. The night air was crisp and cool, a stark contrast to the warmth and vibrancy of the gallery. Bella felt a renewed sense of clarity as she prepared to leave. The encounter with Chris had provided her with a deeper understanding of her own feelings and the choices she faced. The gallery opening had been more than just an art event. It had been a moment of connection and reflection, a reminder of the bond she shared with Chris. As Bella stepped out into the night, she felt a mixture of resolve and anticipation. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she was ready to face it with an open heart. The gallery, with its art and atmosphere, had offered her a glimpse of the possibilities that lay before her. The city was alive with the hum of evening activity, the streets bustling with people and lights. Bella walked through the city with a renewed sense of purpose, her thoughts focused on the future and the decisions she needed to make. The encounter with Chris had been a significant moment, a reminder of the past and a catalyst for her own growth. Back at her apartment, Bella reflected on the evening with a sense of satisfaction. The art, the gallery, and the encounter with Chris had provided her with a new perspective. She felt a sense of peace and readiness as she prepared for the next chapter of her journey. The city outside her window was quiet, the lights twinkling in the distance. Bella took a deep breath and gazed at the artwork she had been working on. The painting was a testament to her journey, a reflection of her emotions and experiences. As she settled into bed, Bella felt a sense of calm and resolve. The path ahead was still unfolding, but she was ready to embrace it with hope and determination. The echoes of her past had become a part of her, guiding her as she navigated the future. Chapter 12: Choices and Reflections. Winter deepened its hold on the city, blanketing it in a serene layer of snow. The streets were transformed into a white wonderland, with the soft, muffled sounds of footsteps and the occasional distant chatter of city life. Bella's apartment, nestled in a quiet corner of the city, offered a cozy sanctuary from the wintry landscape outside. The snowfall had created a sense of stillness, a calm that permeated Bella's life as she continued to navigate the aftermath of the gallery opening and her encounter with Chris. The events of the previous weeks had left her with a lingering sense of contemplation, and she found herself drawn to the stillness of winter as a backdrop for her reflections. One chilly morning, Bella decided to take a walk through the park. The snow-covered paths were pristine, and the trees, adorned with delicate frost, created a picturesque scene. The park was quiet, with only a few early morning walkers, and the occasional bird flitting through the bare branches. As Bella walked, she let her thoughts wander. The park had always been a place of solace for her, a space where she could find clarity amidst the beauty of nature. The gentle crunch of snow beneath her boots and the crisp air invigorated her senses, providing a contrast to the warmth of her apartment. Bella passed by familiar landmarks in the park: the pond that was now frozen over, the gazebo draped in snow, and the benches where she had often sat to read or sketch. Each spot held memories, and as she moved through the park, she reflected on the changes in her life and the decisions she faced. The encounter with Chris at the gallery had stirred up a range of emotions. Bella had spent considerable time thinking about their past, their connection, and the impact he had on her life. The gallery had been a setting of both nostalgia and revelation, and it had prompted her to reassess her feelings and the direction she wanted to take. As she continued her walk, Bella came across a small, picturesque cafe nestled at the edge of the park. The cafe had a charming, old-world ambience, with its wooden facade and warm, inviting lights. It was a favorite spot for many locals, offering a cozy retreat from the cold. Bella decided to stop by, feeling that a warm drink might complement her reflective mood. She entered the cafe, greeted by the comforting aroma of coffee and pastries. The interior was warm and inviting, with soft lighting and comfortable seating. Bella chose a corner table with a view of the snowy park outside. She ordered a hot chocolate and settled into her seat, the warmth of the cafe a pleasant contrast to the cold air outside. As she sipped her drink, Bella allowed herself to relax and observe her surroundings. The cafe was a hub of quiet activity, with people engaged in their own conversations or enjoying their own moments of solitude. Bella's mind wandered back to the recent events and her encounter with Chris. The invitation to the gallery, his presence there, and the silent connection they shared had all been significant. Yet, she also knew that the encounter had not provided her with all the answers she sought. It had been a moment of reconnection, but it had also left her with lingering questions about her future and her own desires. As she looked out the window, Bella watched the snowfall continue, the flakes drifting gently to the ground. The winter landscape was both beautiful and stark, a reflection of the contrasts in her own life. The serenity of the snow contrasted with the inner turbulence she felt as she faced decisions about her relationship with Chris and her own path forward. The cafe provided a peaceful sanctuary where Bella could think and reflect without the distractions of daily life. The hot chocolate warmed her from within, and the quiet atmosphere allowed her to delve into her thoughts. She considered the various paths available to her, whether to reconnect with Chris, to focus on her own growth, or to explore new opportunities. After some time, Bella finished her hot chocolate and decided to take a leisurely stroll back through the park. The snow had continued to fall gently, adding a fresh layer to the already pristine landscape. The park seemed even more enchanting with the new snowfall, and Bella found solace in its beauty. As she walked, Bella's thoughts became clearer. The encounter with Chris had been a catalyst for self-reflection, prompting her to consider what she truly wanted in life. The park, with its tranquil ambience, had provided her with the space to process her emotions and think about her future. Back at her apartment, Bella felt a sense of calm and determination. The winter had given her time to reflect and to evaluate her own desires and choices. The quiet moments of solitude, the beauty of the snowy park, and the warmth of the cafe had all contributed to her growing sense of clarity. The decision about Chris remained, but Bella now felt more equipped to face it with a clearer understanding of her own heart and mind. The winter had provided her with a period of introspection, allowing her to come to terms with her past and to prepare for the future. As evening approached, Bella settled into her routine, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She continued to work on her art, using it as a means of expressing her emotions and reflecting on her journey. The painting she had been working on was nearing completion, its colors and forms reflecting the growth and clarity she had gained. The city outside her window was quiet, the snow-covered streets glowing softly in the evening light. Bella felt a sense of peace as she worked on her painting, her thoughts focused on the future and the possibilities it held. The winter had been a time of reflection and growth, and she was ready to embrace the next chapter of her journey with hope and determination. The days ahead remained uncertain, but Bella was prepared to face them with a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. The winter had offered her a space for introspection and had given her the tools to navigate her own path. With each brushstroke on the canvas, she was shaping her future, ready to embrace whatever came next with an open heart. Chapter 13. Moments of Truth. As winter's grip continued to tighten around the city, Bella found herself more resolute in her decisions. The snow-covered streets and the quiet ambience of her apartment provided a cocoon of solitude in which she could contemplate her next steps. The art she had been working on was nearing completion, reflecting the clarity and resolve she had gained through her recent reflections. One crisp morning, Bella decided to embark on a new project, redecorating her apartment. The winter months had made her long for a fresh start, and she felt that revamping her living space would symbolize a new chapter in her life. She spent the day sorting through paint samples, fabric swatches, and decor ideas, envisioning a space that would embody her renewed sense of self. The process of redecorating her apartment became a therapeutic exercise. Bella carefully selected colors and patterns that resonated with her current mood: soft blues and warm grays, accents of gold and deep green. Each choice was deliberate, a reflection of her inner state and her desire to create a harmonious and inviting environment. As Bella painted the walls and arranged the new furnishings, she felt a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. The transformation of her apartment mirrored the changes within her own life. The space was evolving, becoming a representation of her journey and her readiness to embrace the future. In the midst of her decorating project, Bella received an invitation to a charity gala. The event was to be held at a grand historic venue, known for its opulent architecture and elegant atmosphere. The gala promised an evening of sophistication, with music, fine dining, and a silent auction to benefit various causes. The invitation intrigued Bella. She saw it as an opportunity to further immerse herself in the city's cultural scene and to continue her journey of self-discovery. The prospect of attending the gala presented a chance to engage with new experiences and to potentially connect with people who shared her interests. On the evening of the gala, Bella arrived at the venue dressed in an elegant gown, her appearance a reflection of the sophisticated and polished image she had cultivated. The venue was adorned with luxurious decorations, crystal chandeliers, lavish floral arrangements, and gleaming marble floors. The ambience was one of grandeur and refinement, creating an enchanting atmosphere for the evening. Bella mingled with the guests, her presence marked by grace and poise. The evening was filled with the soft hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the distant strains of classical music. The gala provided a backdrop of elegance and charm, and Bella immersed herself in the experience. As she wandered through the event, Bella observed the silent auction items and the various displays set up around the venue. The auction featured a range of items, from exquisite artwork to luxury vacations. Bella took her time examining each item, reflecting on the causes supported by the gala and the impact of charitable giving. The evening continued with a formal dinner, where guests enjoyed a gourmet meal prepared by renowned chefs. Bella appreciated the attention to detail in the presentation of the food and the quality of the service. The dinner provided an opportunity to engage in meaningful conversations and to connect with others in a setting of elegance and refinement. Throughout the evening, Bella found herself drawn to a particular corner of the venue where a live auction was taking place. The auction featured a collection of unique art pieces, each accompanied by a story of its creation and the artist's vision. The art resonated with Bella, sparking her interest and curiosity. The live auction was a highlight of the evening, with each piece being presented with enthusiasm and passion. Bella watched as the guests bid on the artworks, their competitive spirit adding to the excitement of the event. The atmosphere was one of anticipation and appreciation for the creative expressions on display. As the evening drew to a close, Bella felt a sense of fulfillment and contentment. The gala had provided her with a new perspective and a deeper appreciation for the role of art and charity in making a difference. The experience had also offered her a chance to connect with like-minded individuals and to engage in the city's cultural life. Returning to her apartment after the gala, Bella felt a renewed sense of purpose. The night had been a celebration of creativity and generosity, aligning with her own aspirations and values. The redecoration of her apartment, combined with her experiences at the gala, had solidified her resolve to continue pursuing her passions and to embrace the opportunities that lay ahead. The next morning, Bella awoke to a city still blanketed in snow, the quiet beauty of the winter landscape a reminder of the calm and clarity she had achieved. She continued with her decorating project, completing the final touches and arranging her new furnishings. The apartment had transformed into a space that reflected her journey, a harmonious blend of elegance and comfort. Bella took a step back to admire the results of her work. The apartment now felt like a true reflection of her inner self, a place of serenity and inspiration. The colors, textures, and decorations all came together to create a welcoming and beautiful environment. With her apartment complete, Bella felt a sense of accomplishment and readiness to move forward. The experiences of the past weeks had been transformative, and she was prepared to embrace the future with an open heart. The choices she had made and the reflections she had undertaken had led her to this point, a moment of clarity and resolve. The winter continued its gentle embrace of the city, the snow-covered streets and the quiet of Bella's apartment providing a peaceful backdrop for her thoughts. As she looked out the window at the winter wonderland, Bella felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey she had undertaken and the growth she had achieved. The path ahead remained open, full of possibilities and opportunities. Bella was ready to face whatever came next with confidence and grace. The moments of truth and reflection had shaped her into a person ready to embrace the future, and she looked forward to the new experiences and adventures that awaited her. As evening fell and the city lights twinkled in the distance, Bella settled into her newly decorated apartment with a sense of peace and fulfillment. The winter's quiet beauty mirrored her own sense of calm, and she was prepared to move forward with hope and determination. Chapter 14. The Turning Point. The city, now fully embraced by winter, continued to glisten under a blanket of snow. The days were shorter, the nights longer, and the cold air seemed to amplify the stillness that had settled over Bella's life. Yet, amidst this serene backdrop, she found herself on the cusp of a significant turning point. Bella had spent the past few weeks immersed in her art, using her newly decorated apartment as a studio. The transformation of her living space had provided her with an invigorating environment, fueling her creativity and allowing her to delve deeper into her artistic pursuits. The paintings she created were rich with color and emotion, reflecting the personal growth and clarity she had achieved. One particularly snowy afternoon, Bella received a letter from the city's art council. The letter was an invitation to submit her work for a prestigious art competition. The competition was known for its rigorous selection process and high standards, and the opportunity to participate was both exciting and daunting. Bella's heart raced as she read the letter. The competition represented a significant milestone in her artistic journey, a chance to showcase her work on a larger stage and to gain recognition for her talent. The prospect was both thrilling and intimidating, and Bella felt a surge of mixed emotions as she considered the implications. The days leading up to the competition submission deadline were filled with intense preparation. Bella worked tirelessly, refining her paintings and ensuring that each piece met the high standards required for the competition. She poured her heart and soul into her work, driven by a sense of purpose and determination. The competition was a prestigious event, attracting artists from across the country. The venue for the exhibition was a grand hall, renowned for its elegant architecture and expansive space. The hall was transformed into a gallery for the competition, with each artwork carefully displayed to highlight its unique qualities. On the day of the submission, Bella carefully packed her paintings and transported them to the competition venue. The process of delivering her work was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. The grandeur of the venue and the importance of the event heightened the significance of the moment. Upon arriving at the hall, Bella was greeted by the sight of other artists preparing their works for display. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, as each artist made final adjustments and prepared for the exhibition. The hall was a symphony of creativity and preparation, with each piece of art contributing to the overall tapestry of the event. Bella set up her paintings with meticulous care, ensuring that each piece was displayed to its best advantage. As she worked, she took a moment to step back and admire her efforts. The paintings, each a reflection of her journey and growth, were now part of a larger artistic narrative. The exhibition opening was a grand affair, with guests arriving to view the artworks and enjoy the evening's festivities. The hall was filled with the soft murmur of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the gentle strains of classical music. The ambience was one of sophistication and celebration, creating an environment that showcased the artistic achievements on display. Bella walked through the gallery, observing the diverse range of artworks and the reactions of the guests. The competition had brought together a rich array of artistic expressions, each piece offering a unique perspective and style. The variety of art created a dynamic and engaging experience for the attendees. As the evening progressed, Bella found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. The competition represented a culmination of her efforts, a moment of recognition and validation for her artistic pursuits. The significance of the event was not just in the potential accolades, but in the personal growth and achievement it symbolized. The guests admired and discussed the artworks, and Bella observed their interactions with a sense of quiet satisfaction. The appreciation and engagement with art created an atmosphere of celebration and camaraderie, reinforcing the importance of creative expression in connecting people and ideas. As the night wore on, Bella felt a sense of accomplishment and contentment. The exhibition had provided her with an opportunity to share her work with a broader audience and to engage with the artistic community. The experience had been both rewarding and affirming, further fueling her passion for art. Returning to her apartment later that evening, Bella felt a renewed sense of purpose. The competition had been a significant milestone, and she was proud of her achievements. The experience had reinforced her commitment to her artistic journey and had opened new possibilities for her future. The winter landscape outside her window continued to sparkle in the moonlight, casting a serene glow over the city. Bella settled into her studio, reflecting on the events of the evening. The quiet of the night provided a peaceful backdrop for her thoughts, allowing her to savor the accomplishment and consider the next steps in her journey. The turning point marked by the competition had provided Bella with a deeper understanding of her own potential and aspirations. The process of preparing and participating in the exhibition had been a transformative experience, highlighting the growth and progress she had made as an artist. As Bella looked out at the snowy city, she felt a sense of optimism and readiness for the future. The journey had been filled with challenges and triumphs, and she was prepared to embrace the new opportunities that lay ahead. The competition had been a significant step, but it was also a reminder of the ongoing journey of discovery and growth that awaited her. With a renewed sense of purpose and determination, Bella continued to work on her art, embracing the possibilities and challenges of the future. The winter had provided a time of reflection and achievement, and she was ready to face the next chapter of her journey with confidence and grace. The city outside remained a quiet, shimmering expanse, a reflection of the calm and clarity that Bella had achieved. As she prepared for the days ahead, Bella felt a deep sense of gratitude for the experiences that had shaped her and a hopeful anticipation for the future. Chapter 15: A New Horizon. The city continued to bathe in the gentle glow of winter, the snow-covered streets and rooftops glistening under the pale light of the early morning sun. Bella's apartment, now a haven of calm and inspiration, stood as a testament to her journey over the past months. The transformation of her living space was complete, and it was a reflection of the personal growth and new beginnings that lay ahead. The aftermath of the art competition had been a period of reflection and renewal for Bella. The experience had not only provided her with a sense of accomplishment, but also offered her a clearer perspective on her aspirations and goals. The exposure and feedback from the event had invigorated her artistic spirit, fueling her desire to continue creating and exploring new horizons. One bright morning, Bella decided to take a walk through the city, feeling that a change of scenery would offer her fresh inspiration. The winter sun cast long shadows across the streets, and the crisp air was invigorating. The city was alive with the subdued energy of a winter day, and Bella embraced the opportunity to immerse herself in its quiet charm. As she wandered through the city, Bella observed the changes that winter had brought. The parks were transformed into serene, snow-covered landscapes, and the architecture of the city appeared even more majestic against the backdrop of the season. Each corner of the city seemed to hold a new perspective, and Bella took in the beauty with a sense of wonder. Bella's walk led her to a part of the city she had not explored in some time. A historic district known for its charming streets and unique shops. The area was lined with quaint boutiques, art galleries, and cafes, each offering a glimpse into the rich cultural tapestry of the city. The district had an old-world charm, with its cobblestone streets and historic buildings adding to its allure. As she strolled through the district, Bella came across a small, independent bookstore. The store had a cozy, inviting atmosphere, with shelves overflowing with books and the scent of aged paper and coffee filling the air. Bella felt a sense of nostalgia and curiosity as she entered the store, drawn by the promise of discovery. Inside the bookstore, Bella wandered among the shelves, her fingers brushing against the spines of the books. The store was a treasure trove of literary wonders, with titles ranging from classic literature to contemporary works. Bella was captivated by the variety and depth of the collection, and she found herself lost in the exploration of the store. She eventually settled into a comfortable reading nook, where she discovered a collection of books on art and creativity. The volumes offered insights into different artistic techniques, the lives of famous artists, and the philosophical aspects of creativity. Bella spent hours absorbed in the pages, her mind racing with new ideas and inspirations for her own work. The time spent in the bookstore was a refreshing and enriching experience. Bella left the store with a newfound sense of excitement and determination. The exploration of the bookstore had rekindled her passion for art and had provided her with new perspectives and ideas to incorporate into her creative process. Returning to her apartment later that day, Bella felt a sense of anticipation for the future. The experiences of the past months, including the art competition and her visit to the bookstore, had fueled her creativity and reaffirmed her commitment to her artistic journey. The winter had been a period of growth and transformation, and Bella was ready to embrace the new opportunities that awaited her. She spent the evening in her studio, inspired by the new knowledge and ideas she had gained. Bella began working on a new series of paintings, her brushstrokes reflecting the vibrancy and passion she felt. The paintings were a blend of techniques and themes she had explored, each piece a testament to her evolving artistic vision. As the night fell and the city outside was bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, Bella continued to work on her art, her focus and determination unwavering. The apartment was filled with the warmth of her creative energy, and the new paintings took shape with each passing hour. The winter's quiet beauty provided a fitting backdrop for Bella's artistic endeavors. The snow-covered city outside her window was a reminder of the serenity and clarity she had achieved. Bella felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had led her to this point and a hopeful anticipation for the future. The chapter of her life that had been marked by self-discovery and growth was coming to a close, but Bella knew that it was also the beginning of a new and exciting phase. The experiences and achievements of the past months had prepared her for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. As she completed her work and prepared for rest, Bella reflected on the journey she had undertaken. The path had been filled with moments of introspection, creativity, and transformation, and she was ready to face the future with confidence and hope. The city outside continued to shimmer in the winter light, a symbol of the beauty and potential that awaited Bella. With a heart full of gratitude and a spirit brimming with inspiration, Bella looked forward to the new horizons that lay ahead, ready to embrace the adventures and opportunities that the future held. As the night settled over the city, Bella felt a profound sense of peace and contentment. The journey had been transformative, and she was poised to embark on the next chapter of her life with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. The winter's quiet beauty and the promise of new beginnings filled her with hope, and she embraced the future with an open heart.